All right, welcome everyone. Holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 16, verse 1. Again, want to welcome everyone. Holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 16, verse 1. And we've been speaking the last number of weeks about the sin of Nadav and Avihu. Different aspects of the sin. We went through this whole long Orach Chaim Makadosh. Go back and see previous videos on that. And we spoke we spoke about the Reign of B'chaye as well. And now we're going to see a little bit different aspects here. So again, we're holding by Book of Leviticus Chapter 16, verse 1, and says Mori V'Rebbe, says Arav Agon Ramosh Machshlita, should be well. He brings down in Tam V'das, he brings down his commentary on Chumash, and he brings down the Orach Chaim, brings down a small part of it. And he says, what's the verse talking about? Verse over here, he mentions another verse in Deuteronomy. Right? We spoke about this verse in Deuteronomy. Yeah, the verse in Deuteronomy says that he's liable, that Aaron HaKohen is liable for a death penalty for the sin of the golden calf, which actually we're going to read this week's parsha. Now, the rabbis explain, as we saw in the Reign of B'chaye and others, that when it talks about the God got angry and he was going to destroy him, what does destroy mean? What does destroy mean over here? It means destruction of his kids. It means that his kids are going to die. Now we know Moshe Rabbeinu prayed, and two of his sons didn't die, two of his sons did die. So here my Rebbe says, bringing down from the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, what do we learn out from here? That really was the sin of Aaron that caused the death of his sons, right? The death of his two sons. Now, what's the obvious question? What's the obvious question we're bothered by? And that is, why does it not mention? Why does the Torah not mention this explicitly? Right? Even though the Torah says later, Book of Deuteronomy, that Aaron was supposed to be wiped out for the sin of the golden calf, mentions nothing about destruction of his sons, that his son should die. Right? Doesn't mention anything, nothing about it. So my Rebbe here asks, he asks the following question. He says, why doesn't it mention it? Why didn't the Torah say it? Right? So the Karaites over here will be happy. They're going to say, see, Torah doesn't say that. All the Torah says is they're going to get wiped out. Sorry, that Aaron's going to get wiped out. Torah doesn't say anything about the sons. Doesn't say anything over here. Right? Zero. So my Rebbe answers. He says sometimes the person might be liable for the death penalty. Why would a person be liable for a death penalty? For sins. Whatever sins they might have done. Right? Certainly could be liable for a death penalty. Now, what's the problem? Why, if a person's liable for the death penalty, why doesn't he die? Right? Why doesn't a person die necessarily? The reason is, maybe his children still need him. Still need them, or maybe relatives, maybe they don't deserve to suffer over here. Could very well be. They themselves don't deserve to suffer. So therefore, God is going to wait and mete out the punishment. Right? In other words, that person may be liable. Somebody may be liable for a death penalty. But the kid's spouse, maybe other relatives, maybe the world in general is going to see from Revelio Lopiana, blessed memory. Maybe the world needs him or her. So therefore, they might be liable for a death penalty. God doesn't take them because he's looking at the bigger picture. in the bigger picture over here is there are other people going to suffer. So if there are other people going to suffer, why is that person going to die? God won't take him now. Take him later. Right now. So for different reasons, God may not take him. He may not take him over here. He may not punish the sinner. Now, we do understand the ways of God are just. Even if we don't fathom and we don't understand fully, okay. But his ways are just. And God judges each one according to where they're holding. Not what their future potential is. Right? Who do we learn that out from? We learn it out from Yishmael. Because the Medrash says, the angels tell God, kill him. Hagar turns around, doesn't want to see her son die. They don't have any water. So the angels tell God, listen, destroy him. Let him die. And the reason you should let him die, the angels say, very simple, because look at all the pain. Look at all the pain he's going to cause. His offspring are going to cause the Jewish people in the future. So God says, very good point. Very good point, only one problem. What's the problem? Problem is, I'm going to ask you the $1 million question. Is this child right now liable? Is he guilty or innocent? So the angel says he's innocent. So God says, I can't kill him. Right? Because the verse over there says, Ba'asher Husham. The end of the verse says, Ba'asher Husham. That's where he is now. Now meaning not future. That how's God going to judge a person? Where he's holding now. So when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, every year, when our soul gets judged, every Jew, non-Jew, going to get judged. God's going to judge us. God's going to judge the world in general. So when God judges us and what we've done during the year, terrible things that we've done, he's going to judge us where we're holding. Not about future potential, right? Not about future potential, what you could be 5 years from now, 2 years from now. God's going to judge you where your soul is right now, what you're doing right now. So now, we do understand that God's ways are just, and therefore, what do we see over here? The Rebbe here says, guess what? The death of the two sons of Aaron. The rabbis explain, what's the punishment? We've been speaking about this for a while. What's the reason over here? That there are a number of different reasons that the Torah potentially gives. Right? One is, there's a command not allowed to drink wine when you serve in the tabernacle, which became the temple later. Right? Not allowed to drink wine and serve. That could be one reason. Or they brought a strange fire. Right? Torah says explicitly, chapter 10, verse 2. I think it's verse 2 over there. Right? It says that they brought a strange fire. Or they gave over, Jewish law in front of their Rebbe, in front of Moshe Rabbeinu. They seemingly didn't show proper respect, as the Talmud tells us. And could be any number of reasons, right? Talmud gives a number of reasons also. I think there are like 6 different reasons, potential reasons. Besides, including the ones that are mentioned explicitly in the Torah. So be that as it may, there are a lot of different reasons going on, potentially, that they could have died. And they also explain, really, Aaron's supposed to feel the pain. He's obligated to feel the pain with the destruction of his kids. Why? For the sin of the golden calf. Now, we explained this before, and it's very hard to understand in general, what's going on. Exactly what's going on over here. And that is the following. That the problem is if we see that there are a number of reasons why the Jewish people, why Aaron's sons should have died, many, many reasons. The reality is the Torah says that aren't supposed to be wiped out because of the sin of the golden calf. Now, the problem is that if you look at the verses in this week's parsha that speak about the sin of the golden calf, what do I see? The commentaries there bend over backwards to show or try and show that really it wasn't idolatry. What they did really wasn't idolatry. And what Aaron did, seemingly wasn't really a sin at all. He was just stolen. Right? So the commentators, even though if you look at the simple explanation in the verses, the commentators, bend over backwards to make it look like, it really wasn't idolatry. They really did believe in Moshe Rabbeinu, etc. Simple explanation is not that way. Right? It was the Erev, the mixed multitude came out of Egypt. Right? The converts came out of Egypt or from other places, depending who you go like. So they're the ones that caused the sin of the golden calf. Whatever the reason is, Aaron played some minor role. We don't understand. Right? Some minor role over here. But where's the payment come from? Where's the punishment coming from? From his sons. The Torah tells me the sons are not, it says that the sons will pay for the sins of the parents, which might not sound so fair. Right? The reality is you're going to say what the sons do. What in the world do the sons do over here? Right? Or the children in general. What do they do to deserve to be punished? Seemingly the answer is they didn't do anything. Right? But Rashi there on the spot says, what the problem is? Problem is parents are evil. Right? So if the parents are evil and the kids go in that same direction. In other words, we are made up of who our parents are. Good character traits, bad character traits, part of our DNA. Doesn't mean necessarily the bad character traits we have to act on. Okay, but we are a hybrid of our parents. That's who we are. That's what our DNA is. Some have more of this, some have less of that. Some have less of that, more of that. Whatever it is, good, bad, anything in between. So now the question is, if that's the way I'm programmed, right? And these are the character traits that I have that are within me. So what's the curse about? Why does the Torah tell me kids are going to pay for the parents what they do? Why do we deserve that? Why do the kids deserve that? Seemingly they didn't do anything wrong. That's what it sounds like. Didn't do anything wrong. So what's the issue? The Rashi says explicitly, what the problem is? The kids go in the wrong path. They go in the same evil path as the parents. Right? Whatever the character traits are. They go in that same path. So therefore that curse is going to apply. If they go against it, they fight against it, doesn't matter how they're brought up, how they're raised, totally irrelevant. But they go against the negative things the parents have done, that curse doesn't apply. So a person will say, come on, I grew up in a family, mafiosos. That's how I grew up. Right? Mafiosos. So, it's in my blood. Steal, cheat, kill, do all kinds of things. So why is God going to have a claim against me? What can I do? I grew up in a messed up home. God's going to say, fine. I put you in that type of home for a reason. Because I want to see how you're going to react. I want to see what you're going to do. Right? So therefore, you act on it in a negative way, you're in trouble. But you're going to say, what can I do? What can I do over here? I'm given a bad hand. Right? Given a bad hand. Remember, the Mishnah Pirkei Avos says in Ethics of Our Fathers, we're born against our will, we die against our will. Kaufman's language, in parentheses, you still have to live. Right? So we're not in control. Not in control. Our parents, our siblings, all these things. Spoken about this quite a bit. Right? I don't want to digress here. Right? But the point is, when we understand that, What are most people going to do? Or what are they going to think? Let's say better. Doing it's a lot more difficult. What are they going to think? Once they realize, let's say their siblings or their parents are out of their minds and they're absolutely mad for things they've said and things they've done, which could very well be. I'm not saying mentally challenged, but whatever, they bully, they say things, they're all kinds of things anywhere in between. Now, a person can either get beaten down in life because of it, or a person can say this is just wrong. And the only question is, okay, I have to deal with it knowing, let's say, someone's parents, they're manic depressed. They have, they're bipolar. Maybe one of them is bipolar. So they do things seemingly out of character, but that's how they act. They don't go for help, other things. So they act in a certain way. Now, if a person understands, which is very hard when you're younger, because the person's going to say, well, it's all my fault. It's because I did this, that they're acting this way. And the reality is, I'm just saying in this scenario, right? The reality is they didn't do anything wrong. Kids didn't do anything wrong, and they get blamed for all kinds of things that have nothing to do with it. Have nothing to do with it. So now, what could they say once they understand really what's going on? What could they say? They could say, I'll never do this to my kids. I'll never act in such a way. That's what they'll say. That's what some people will say, depending how far down they are. But they're going to say, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to act in such a way. And they're going to work very hard to make sure they don't do that. They may need therapy for that. They may need to work and re-educate themselves. Totally re-educate themselves. Does it happen? Guaranteed it happens. Guaranteed. Parents are messed up. Siblings are messed up in different ways. And they take it out on their kids. So a person may need serious therapy to get out of it. At least to understand what's going on. As I mentioned last night, and I spoke about this a lot, right? Yesterday in Pirkei Avos, and that is that it's not a person's fault, right? It may not be their fault at all. But the problem is, it may take serious therapy to get out of it. And that's what might happen. But 95%, I said 90%, I'll say 95% now. 95% of the game is understanding what it is. And once you understand what it is, okay, now it's a whole different ballgame. It's a whole different ballgame. Yeah, does it mean it's easy to get over? No. But once you understand what's going on, what would a person say? These people are mad. These people are crazy. These people have done this, that, and the other thing. Right? So the idea is that, yeah, these people are nuts. And that's the way we have to look at it. That's part of the healing process. So they're never going to want to give that to their kids. Oh, so now the question here, someone points out, question is, okay, so now, are we saying Aaron's evil? No. We're not saying he's evil. Just because a child may pay for the sins of the parents doesn't necessarily mean the parents are inherently evil. Right? Doesn't mean the parents are Hitler. Doesn't mean they're like Hitler. May his name be blotted out, may he rot wherever he is. They could have done things wrong, and the punishment on their level is severe. Aaron HaKohen, some consider greater than Moshe Rabbeinu in different ways. Some say they're equal in many ways. Some say may have been greater in different ways. Others say definitely Moshe Rabbeinu was greater. He's at a very high level. Very, very high spiritual level. So we're not saying he's evil incarnate. No, certainly not going to say that. But he did something wrong at some level, whatever the level is. We're very hard to understand in general, because again, if you look at the verses, with the sin of the golden calf, what did Aaron do? He stalled. He didn't participate. He wasn't interested in what was going on. He was waiting for Moshe Rabbeinu to come back. And he knew Moshe Rabbeinu was going to come back. So this was just stalling tactic. You think all the women are going to give over their gold a snowball's chance in hell that's going to happen, right? How in the world is that going to happen? When are we going to give their jewelry? It was a stalling tactic, right? Did he believe that this calf that came out and spoke and this and that showed that the calf took them out of Egypt? No. Did he believe we're going to make a holiday out of it? No. It was the Erev Rav, it was a mixed multitude. He was just stalling, right? The Moshe Rabbeinu comes down and says, "Aaron, my brother, what happened here?" He says, "Well, these people are difficult. They're a stiff-necked nation. Try to do this, try to do that, whatever." So then Moshe Rabbeinu, destroys the calf, and the Levites who, join in the cause, right? Moshe Rabbeinu says, "Me Hashem alai," who's with me, who's with God. He told them, whoever sinned over, you have to kill them. They killed 3,000 people, the mixed multitude. So you're going to say, okay, Aaron HaKohen had zero to do with the sin of the golden calf. But it seems from the book of Deuteronomy, God deserved to wipe him out at some level for whatever he did. Does that mean he's evil? No, it doesn't mean he's evil. It means the punishment for what he did was absolutely severe, and that he was liable for the death penalty. Because we brought down in the Or Chaim HaKadosh. I just want to quote it right. Make sure I get it right here. He brought down the Korban Aaron. The Korban Aaron said that if you're close to the king, you very well could get burnt. You very well could get burnt if you're close to the king. And the closer to the king that we are, in a certain way, the worse it is. Right? Why? Because if you do something minor and you're close to the king, you're vice president, you're second in command, you do something even minor, what does the king say? What do I have you here for? You look better without a head. Right? You think it was a ball boy, right? You think it was the mail carrier, for goodness sakes, did something wrong. You think the king's going to wipe him out? Okay, it depends what he did. But he's low man on the totem pole, so to speak. So if he's a low man, he does something wrong, the king cares? Why does the king care? He lets someone else deal with this lackey. If he does the second time, third time, okay, maybe he's going to get fired from his job. He's not going to get killed. Not even close. What did he do wrong over here to deserve to get killed? Oh, comes on Aaron HaKohen. Aaron HaKohen at a very high level. It comes along the Korban Aaron and says, guess what? The higher level that you're at, it's a catch-22. You want to raise yourself to a higher spiritual level. What's going to be the end result? If you do something wrong, you might be toast. You might suffer like no tomorrow. That's why, just throw this out there because I mentioned this before, potential converts have it very, very hard in many ways, even before conversion, right? I claim it's harder after conversion. Why? Going through the information and finally converting, okay, that's one level. And then once the person converts, you're on your own. It's not like you can have rabbis breathing down your neck, other people inviting you for Shabbos and different things. I'm not going to say the buck stops here. I know it's happened to a number of people. Once they converted, they were let alone, right, in their community. People stopped inviting them for Shabbos to work on other people. Someone came to me and they said, I can't believe this happened. Right? I'm totally shocked. People don't invite me for Shabbos. They don't invite me for festivals, different things. I said, what do you mean? I spoke about it a lot. Either you never listened or you didn't think I was serious or you thought I was blowing smoke. It can certainly happen. I'm not saying across the board it does, right? But the point is, so why do converts have it so hard? Or JITs, as I would call them, right? So the reason is because now you have a higher awareness. What's the higher awareness? The higher awareness is, I know what God wants from me. I leave Christianity, right? I go against everything I've been taught. I am Avraham Avinu, right? I am Abraham. Avraham HaIvri. What does Ivri mean? He was on one side of the world, the whole rest of the world on the other. He fought against the whole world. Isn't that what we're doing? We're bringing out absolute truth. Aren't we fighting against the whole world? Whole world doesn't want to hear it, right? Hitler Yamach Shemoy V'Zichro, what did he say? We brought morality to the world. True. right? We brought absoluteness to the world, that God is one, God is unique, God doesn't change, God isn't fickle. We brought morality to the world. He's right. He's 100% right. We brought morality to the world. But then he said, because of that, we're going to snuff you out. Going to knock you out. Knock out the entire Jewish race. Right? So what's going on over here? Person will say, isn't it better not to know anything or know much less? Because if I know much less, person be like a potato farmer in Idaho. No offense, anyone's a potato farmer grew up in Idaho, right? But you won't be liable for as much unless you do something egregious, like intermarry or desecrate Shabbos in public. That you don't get a free pass. Could be other things as well, right? So it's a catch-22, right? Like a friend of mine would say, better be ignorant, but God's going to zap you even if you are ignorant. You got greater potential, right? Famous story, Medrash brings down, story of a fisherman. Comes upstairs after 120 years, right? God asked him, did you learn Torah? Right? One of the first questions, either did you learn Torah or you honest in business? Right? So I asked him, you learned Torah? What are you talking about? You didn't give me brains to learn Torah. God says, really? What was your occupation? So the fisherman says, the fisherman. So he says, really? Very interesting. Tell me how you how'd you make a living? He said, I made these intricate nets. I went out early. I went to this place, that place. I trapped fish, and this is what I did. So God says, wow, it's so interesting. I bet the same God who gave you brains in order to trap fish probably gave you the same amount of brains in order to learn Torah. Not a good excuse. Not a good excuse. So God can say, you didn't learn Torah. You weren't interested in learning Torah over here. So it could be you get a certain pass for certain things. But if you know better, and we've spoken about this a lot, I don't want to beat this down even more, right? But if a person has a higher awareness, the stakes are much higher. Much, much higher. And it makes sense. Why? Because now you understand what God wants. Now you understand how the world works. Now you understand what our obligation is. You think you're going to get a free pass just because you want to join the Jewish people? Or if you're a secular Jew, you become religious, all of a sudden you're going to get a free pass? Not happening. Not happening. And if you had it easy before, God's going to say, okay, now we're going to squeeze you. Now we're going to make it more difficult. I don't know too many people who changed their lives had it easy. Across the board had it easy. I don't know anybody like that. People had different trials, right? Definitely had different trials. And, having trials makes us who we are, right? But at the end of the day, the closer you are to the king, you mess up. The king could say you look better without a head. King could absolutely do that because you're held to a higher standard. So a person can say, well, don't hold me to a higher standard. So I would say like this. My answer would be that what would you rather have? Would you rather have fantasy where, nothing really matters, do what you want, eat as many hot fudge sundaes, put on all kinds of weight, nothing bad happens, right? And then you get nothing later. Or would you rather struggle in different ways, but have real meaning in life, knowing every single thing you do has repercussions? Your thoughts, your actions, all these things have repercussions. Now, some people will say, I'll take fantasy. Fantasy much better. Seems like an easier path. Yeah, it's only somewhat of an easier path in this world. God will destroy you anyway. But, maybe he'll just wait, to the next world because God has to give you reward for whatever mitzvahs you've done. Let's say you gave charity or you have Granny cross the street. God has to give you a reward for that. But if he doesn't want to see you in the next world, he'll give you a reward now. He'll give it to you now. Right? So I would venture to say, unless the person's totally brain dead or they're just giving in to desire, what would a person say? I'd rather have it harder. I'd rather have it more difficult, but understanding whatever I do is significant. That's a huge thing. But what do we pray every day? We say in the morning, don't bring me to trials and tribulations. But we don't grow without them. It's catch-22. Can't have it both ways, right? No free lunch. Can't have it both ways, Right? So here, what does my Rebbe say? First part, he says that the reason Nadav and Avihu, get severely punished could be any number of reasons. Right? We mentioned potentially they drank wine before they served. They brought a strange fire. They gave over Jewish law in front of their Rebbe, in front of Moshe Rabbeinu. Right? But we do understand it's payback for the sin of what Aaron did. Also, even though it's not mentioned explicitly. So what did my Rebbe answer? So he answers, sometimes a person's liable for a death penalty. Why? For whatever reason, whatever they've done, but their family does not deserve to suffer over here. So because the family doesn't deserve to suffer, so the person not going to get punished yet. He's not gonna, he's not gonna die over here because his family needs him, friends need him, whatever the case is. Then my Rebbe says, and now we'll bring up what Rav Lopian said. So he said, I heard from the righteous one, the tzaddik Rav Lopian. Rav Lopian had a close relationship with his family. The family was very close to him. He was one of the Torah giants of the last generation. Right, pretty much anyone my Rebbe came in contact with were like Torah giants of the last generation. And I once asked him, when you heard it from, Rav Lopian or this one, I said, you heard it in the name of that person, or you actually heard him say it? So he looked at me and goes, I heard him say it. I heard him say it. So this is what he said. He said, I heard from the righteous one, Rav Lopian, a blessed memory. I heard him say it. He said, it's fitting for a person to work for the masses, to work for the clout, to work for the Jewish people, to be out there helping the Jewish people in any way they can. Why? First of all, it's a good thing to do, help out other Jews. But he says it could be a tremendous merit for you. Tremendous merit over here. You're helping out the masses, right? You're helping out the masses, but guess what? Maybe, God forbid, you do something wrong. And you've done something egregious where God says, you know what? You deserve to be wiped out. I should really wipe you out. But you know what? You're helping out the masses. Other people need you. So I'm not going to make them suffer by punishing you. Unbelievable idea. Right? In other words, you, whoever it is, deserve to be thrashed around and die. But the problem is people around you don't. They don't deserve to suffer that loss right now. And it could be for 10 years, 20 years, could be for however long. God says we need you around for whatever reason. So therefore, you're working with the masses. You're helping out the masses by volunteering, doing whatever. So that stands up for you. You may be liable for a death penalty, but guess what? The merit's still there. The merit protects. That's what Rav Lopian said. He said that really the judgment should come down very harsh. And God's going to judge us, however he's going to judge us. But he says, if you got something extra that's going to protect, i.e. you're helping the masses, you're helping others, you're volunteering time with whatever, with the general populace, tremendous thing that can protect. That absolutely has the ability to protect because they need you. Right? They absolutely need you. They can't live without you. Why do they have to suffer? You need to suffer. Right? Whoever that is. That person needs to suffer, but the people don't. People don't need to suffer. So comes along the Brisker Rav, a blessed memory of Israel Zev Soloveitchik, and he said God's character traits are of chesed ve'emes, is a tremendous amount of chesed, acts of loving kindness that he does with us, he does with the world, and truth. God's stamp in this world is truth. Right? So now, what is truth in his eyes? In God's eyes? The truth is from all sides. Now, on one side, what's God going to say? This person deserves a death penalty. Okay. But it's also true that his family doesn't deserve to suffer over here. or others who need this person don't deserve to suffer. So God can look at the same thing in many different ways. So therefore what? Therefore over here is Rav Eliezer beyond said. If a person has a merit stand up for him, i.e. he's helping out the populace, then that can protect. That has the ability to protect regardless of whether the person's liable for the death penalty or not. Now, God can say, okay, on the one hand, this person I should wipe him out. On the other hand, he's got other protection here. So it's not a contradiction, right? I'll give another example. God says, the Talmud tells us, the angels want to sing praise to God when the Egyptians are drowned. So what does God say? God says, my creation is drowning, and you want to sing? Now, what would we say? Of course, let him drown. Why shouldn't we sing? Look at all the pain they caused the Jewish people. 80% of the Jewish people wiped out in the plague of darkness. More than 9 million people or more. So why can't we sing Shira? Why can't we sing over here that they're drowning? Who cares? They're God's creation. I understand they're God's creation. They're evil. They're evil over here. Look what the pain they caused. Look at all the pain they caused the Jewish people. At the same time, God says, but they're still my creation. They're still my creation. I'll take it one step further. As the waves are coming crashing, as the Egyptians are running after the Jews, and they're confounded. God confounds them, right, by light. They can't see, etc. And the Jews escape, and the Egyptians admit their God is fighting for them. What's the merit of such a thing? What's the merit of saying such a thing? Right? So it's brought down, the merit of that. I have a video on YouTube, spoke about it. My YouTube channel, Rabbi Chaim Kaufman, and that is they had the merit to be spit out of the ocean and be buried in dry land. Now, if it were up to me, if I was playing God, put on my funny glasses, my George Burns glasses, my funny mustache, I would say, let them get eaten up by whales and sharks and who knows what, just like Bin Laden. Throw them overboard. Let the fish eat them. Piranhas have a field day. Let them eat them. They have a merit. They have a merit to be buried. Why? I would never say that. Not in a million years. Let them drown. Let them die in the ocean. And let them be buried in the ocean. Finished. They'll go down like the Titanic. Finished. They have a merit because they said, and they agreed that God was fighting against them, and they were moed al emes, and they agree on the truth. That's enough to have them be buried. I would have said, okay, it's very nice. It's very nice. Now they finally admit God's the one in charge, and God runs the world. Very good, but they have a right to be buried. Not my book. Certainly not my book. But God says it's still my creation. I still have pain. I have to punish them. I don't want to have to punish them. But okay, they deserve to be punished. They deserve to be wiped out. But God can have both feelings at the same time. He can feel the pain, what they did to the Jewish people and that they deserve to die. And he can also feel the pain is my creation. I don't want to have to destroy my creation. Only God can feel two things at the same time. By us, we'll say, let them burn. Let them be buried. Forget about spitting them out on the land. Let them stay in the water and die. That's it. They don't deserve to be buried for what they've done. That's what I would have said. Right? But God can look at things, He can look at something two different ways at the exact same time. We cannot do that. Right? Just like we say, in the Ten Commandments, it says by the laws of Shabbos, right? It says by keeping Shabbos, Zachor es Yom HaShabbos L'Kadsheh. You should remember You should remember the Torah. You should remember Shabbos. In the book of Deuteronomy, it says Shamor. Shamor is B'nai Yisrael. She guards Shabbos. Right? So the Ramban there says, book of Exodus talking about positive commands, remember Shabbos, and negative commands, guarding Shabbos, not to do this, not to do that. So God says at the same time, Zachar v'Shamor. God can say Zachar v'Shamor at the exact same time. We can't. We have to take a breath in between. We can't do that. Right? So there are things that God can do that we can't do. And he looks at things so radically different than we do. Right? Again, his creation is drowning. So what would the Jews say? Let him drown. What an unbelievable thing. Let him drown. They deserve to drown. 100%. Being buried is a merit. It's a merit. Now, the non-Jews, I'll just throw this out there. Do non-Jews have to be buried in the ground? No. Seemingly not. Even though the Torah tells me, before the Torah is given, that after the sin of Adam and Eve, God says, okay, everyone out of the pool, throws them out of the Garden of Eden, and he says, you were created from dust, you have to go back to dust. Adam and Eve weren't Jews. We thought the last time I checked. So it could be, a person can bring a proof from that, and they could say, you know what? When it comes to, being buried in the ground, Jews and non-Jews are the same. They just have to be buried in the ground. Can a non-Jew be cremated? Doesn't seem like he can't. Doesn't seem like it's an issue. A Jew has to be buried in the ground, right? Definitely has to be buried in the ground, right? Non-Jew, not necessarily, right? But the point is, God can look at something in multiple ways, and we may only see it in one way. Maybe we see it in a different way. But again, in a case like this where God says, my creation is drowning, how could you sing? What do you mean? Well, look what the Egyptians did. That was the Nazis, Yamach Shemam, and the prisoners were watching them get gunned down. Yeah, they're yelling and screaming and cheering. They're oppressors, and the ones that killed their families, they're all being gunned down. You don't think they're whistling Dixie over here in a certain way? Of course, their oppressors are gone. They're not around anymore. They can't cause damage. But God says, even in that case, how evil they are, God takes them out. Fine. Even if he takes them out, it's still his creation. Boggles the mind. Even someone inherently evil, you're going to say that's punishment. That's what, that's what God thinks. That's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says, my creation is drowning. The angels want to sing. You're not allowed to sing. Doesn't God agree they deserve to be punished? 100%. But even if they deserve to be punished, they still, they're still my creation. We cannot look at those two things in the same way. Humans cannot do that. Right? It would take someone extra human. It's impossible. Just like the Talmud says, we're going to be able to say a blessing on the bad just like we say on the good. But that's only in the future. It's not now. Definitely not now. Because we can't do that. Because we don't see it that way. When we see things, and we see tragedy, we don't say it's good. We don't see it being good. Right? Just the opposite. When someone dies, in general, we miss them, hopefully. We're lacking, but we know they're in a better place. Right? We know, they're going to have hopefully their portion of the world to come. So they're not lacking anything. But we're the ones missing. We're the ones lacking. We can't look at things the same way. It's impossible. It's impossible for a human being to do it. You can tell me there's certain people who can do it. They're on an extremely high spiritual level. We can't do that. It's very hard. Very, very hard, if not impossible. We're not on the level of Nachum Ish Gamza. Nachum Ish Gamza was the Rebbe Akiva. Rebbe Akiva said, Kol David Rachmano L'Toiv Avid. Everything that God does is good. Nachum Ish Gamza was Rebbe one step better. A few more steps better. What did he say? Gamzu Atoiva. He said everything is good. And he had boils all over his body. He was paraplegic, lived in a hovel. Everything is good? He says, yeah, everything is good. So maybe there are. Certain people can reach a certain level. But he saw everything being good. It's a whole different thing. Yeah, so says my Rebbe over here. There's something else he says, but I'll take some questions here. Somebody asks, does that count for non-Jews also? They might deserve bigger punishment. God doesn't take them because people need them. Interesting question. Now we do understand. We do understand non-Jews don't have the same soul. Not the same soul makeup as a Jew. Right? But, if God knows, let's say God knows they're going to convert in the future, or they're going to do good things, etc. You have to understand, God has a tremendous amount of mercy. How do I know? Right? How do I know? It's very simple that most non-Jews today, even if they convert, even if they, stay as Noahites, most non-Jews today be liable for death penalty. They'll all be dead. Unless they repent. The Gemaras in Sanhedrin wipe out probably 80% of non-Jews by the Noahide laws, and the Rambam the last 20%. Why? Because the Rambam says the non-Jew who keeps the 7 Noahide laws has to say verbally, you're keeping the 7 laws, or it's only an umbrella, but they're like 40 laws, 50 laws, whatever it is. But they're keeping the Noahide laws because God gave the Torah to Moshe. Moshe passed it down to us. And what he gave over to the Jewish people were also the Noahide laws. Even though there was a covenant made between God and Adam and Noah, the covenant, is made stronger, so to speak, by Mount Sinai. That covenant is renewed, and therefore a non-Jew, in order to keep the Noahide laws, has to make this declaration. They don't have to do it in front of a rabbinical court. They want to, they can. They're not obligated to. Probably good to say it in front of a few people. They want to be Noahites. But they should make a verbal declaration. Now, that being the case, how many non-Jews keeping the Noahide laws are keeping it because God passed the Torah down to Moshe? I don't know. I didn't take a survey, but probably not too many. Right? Probably not too many aware of this. That's why giving classes for Noahites. Right? In order that they should know what they have to do, what they're obligated to do, and what they're not allowed to do, and other things. Fine. So, if most non-Jews, in my estimation, not everybody, right, if they were idolaters, they're liable for a death penalty, they're allowed to repent. You see by the book of Jonah. By Nineveh, they're allowed to repent. There is repentance. Right? So now, if a non-Jew is liable for a death penalty, could very well be same thing. Could be that they have protection. Right? You have to remember as well, repentance for a non-Jew doesn't necessarily work the same way. It doesn't uproot the entire thing they've done like a Jew. It stops them from being punished. It's like a deflection. It's like having a shield. Right? It's like having a shield. So it could be. Could very well be. I have to think this out further. But could very well be the same thing. By a non-Jew also. If they're helping others, they're going in the right path, they're doing what they need to do. If they're going in the right path, could be they also have protection. Right? By helping others, etc. Could very well be. Right? To think that through, but that very well could be. Someone asks, does everyone get it all right? Nobody's perfect. Nobody's been in this world as it's brought down. No one's been in this world who's never sinned. There are only 4 people, I think. 4 people who lived in this world that only died because of the sin of Adam and Eve. So everyone else has done something where, they have to die. I'm not saying they're necessarily liable for death penalty, per se, but, no one goes through this world without sinning. So if that's the case, you're right. Nobody's perfect. Right? Nobody's perfect. But, we have to try and strive and be the best we can. So now someone's going to say, that's an impossibility. We're not God. We're not perfect. You're right. 100%. So we can never rest on our laurels. There are no breaks. There's no free time over here. There's no sipping pina coladas. Why? Because King David says that brings down in Psalms that we're only here for 70 years. If we have strength, 80 years. Life goes in anything over that's a bonus. So what are we doing here? We get distracted. Very easily get distracted. So that being the case, we mess around, we take time off. You're right, we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. How many people reach that level of their perfection? I don't know. Right? But, you got great people that, Torah giants, that's all they do. They're machines. They're machines in learning and being servants of God. I don't mean a machine in the sense that just doing things by rote. They're growing. Give an example. Rivka is pregnant. And she doesn't know what's going on in her stomach, right? Esav Yaakov fighting, right? In vitro, so to speak. And so she goes to shame, asks what's going on. And she prays and Yitzchak prays. Now, Rashi says that Yitzchak's prayers are answered first. Why? Because he's righteous, the son of someone who's righteous, i.e. Abraham. Rivka, her father was evil. So she changed her life. Why isn't her prayer answered first? So the Gemara says that in a place where a Baal Tshuva stands, someone who returns to Judaism, that's how the technical definition today, right? Someone who returns to Judaism and grew up religious, or someone who properly repents, let's say better, their father was evil, they changed their lives. Totally changed their lives. So the Gemara says where Baal Tshuva stands, a tzaddik gamor cannot stand. A righteous person can't stand. What do you mean a righteous person can't stand? I was explaining this to my kids over Shabbos when mentioned last night also in Pirkei Avos that it was by the conservative movement and people were starting, trying to keep kosher or whatever. A friend of mine had a treif urge. He had a non-kosher urge. He had this desire to have, pepperoni pizza. So we're trying to, tell him no, and this and that. And, he had this desire and, okay, he did what he did. Right? I forgot to tell the end of the story. Someone asked at the end. He ate it. Right? In the end, he ate it. But the point was, yeah, that may be inside of us. We may have these, different desires, or whatever. It's not what God wants us to do. Totally not what he wants us to do. Right? But nobody's perfect over here. We're not saying anybody's perfect. Moshe Rabbeinu came to the 48th level of knowledge. He's missing one level of knowledge. And seemingly he did something minor that he doesn't go into the land of Israel. Right? Not the topic for now. Right? But the idea is, you're right. We may not think the way we should. We may not learn the way we should. We're living in a cream puff generation. Right? So we're very weak. We're very taken aback by what goes on around us. All these things, that's all true. That is all true. But the point is that even though, get back to my case of Rivka, that's what I was talking about, that Rivka reached a very high spiritual level, went against her father and what her father taught and all that. So you're right, at a certain level, a tzaddik gamor, someone who's truly righteous, is not going to have those desires. A righteous person is going to have desire to eat pig? I don't think so. Right? To eat pepperoni? I don't think so. You're not going to have that desire. But what's the difference? What's the major difference? The major difference is a person can say, well, Yitzchak grew up Abraham's son. He grew up underneath the tutelage of the Torah giant of that generation. Giant among giants for all generations. So you're going to say, it's very simple, he became righteous. Look who his father was. But see, someone who has that level of a pedigree. Rabbi's mother used to say, you know what yichus is? You know what this pedigree is? It's just like adding another zero. Right? In other words, having a pedigree means I have higher expectations. My grandfather was a great rabbi, or my father was a great rabbi, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, throughout the generations. But there are big steps to fill, big shoes to fill. But you're starting off already at a plus in a certain way. Because you got that in your genes. Now, my Rebbe's mother would say that doesn't mean anything. You got to carve it out for yourself. True. But it helps. It helps growing up around people that are steeped in Torah mitzvahs. Makes it a lot easier. You have siblings, relatives, cousins, right? They're all steeped in Torah mitzvahs at some level. Some more, some less. But you're already starting off with a plus. So now, you take Yitzchak, you're going to say, of course he's going to be great. Look who his father was. But even if a person has that level of a pedigree, even if he's got that level of a pedigree, guess what? In order to keep that level and go beyond, you got to work every day. You can't rest on your laurels. You got to work and work and work and learn and learn and learn. You don't stop. You don't stop for nothing. You're going to say, what about making a living? What about your spouse? What about, okay, person has to know when to close the Gemara, etc. But if a person's growing, and that's where their focus is, don't you think? They're going to raise themselves to a high spiritual level. Does that mean they're perfect? No, it doesn't. Does that mean they don't make mistakes? No, they can make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. But at the same time, a person had that desire and that will, and they keep going. Imagine what they could be. Imagine what they could be. I've said on myself many times, all knowledge of movies and sports over the years, if I would have focused on Torah, not wasted my time with that, would have been a Torah giant a long time ago. Right? No offense to all the Torah giants out there. Right? Wasted time. Does that mean I would have reached my potential that way? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. It's true. It's true. We're going to fail at some level. Some more, some less. We have to pick ourselves up also even after we fail. So nobody's perfect. I'm not saying anyone's perfect. Not by any stretch. But we could easily use the excuse. And we could easily say, you know what? I'm never going to be perfect. I'm always going to make mistakes. Right? At some level. So the person will say, I'm going to stop before I even start. What's the point? Right? What in the world is point? So someone here points out, are we labor without end? Yeah, that's what we are. We're going to be lean, mean learning machines. When we're not busy doing other things. If a person only has a certain amount of time to set aside to learn, that's what you do. But you try and maximize it as much as possible. Because we're not here that long. But with the Ramchal says explicitly in Path of the Just, we're here to toil. That's what we're here for. We're not here to waste time. We don't care what's going on in the stock market or other things. In general. We don't. That's not important. Oh, but I could be making money. This okay. Right? We got to do what we have to do to make a living. It's true. But there's so many things we waste time with. So many things, spoken about it a lot. So we get distracted in this world. Totally get distracted. So the reality is, even if we make mistakes, doesn't matter. Because the person can throw in the towel at the beginning and say, why bother? I know I'm going to make mistakes. I know I'll probably make more mistakes. And I'm going to get that for making more mistakes. So why bother? Might as well eat, drink, and marry, lest tomorrow I die. Second part of the question is, well, what about the kindness that Egypt did for Joseph and all the brothers that came down and all that? Okay. Right? But that's how God orchestrated it, gets, the Jewish people, into Egypt to make them into a nation, and have them, serving and suffering there. But you have to remember also, beginning of the book of Exodus, what does the Torah tell me? The Torah tells me a new king arose. A new king arose that forgot Joseph. Now, there are two opinions. One is it was actually a new king, and, they had written down everything that Joseph had done, didn't make it into the school books, and all that. And Taki was a new king, he didn't know. The other explanation is he was the same king and he forgot, literally. Didn't want to remember what Joseph did and enslaved the Jewish people. So in a certain way, yeah, Joseph through Egypt saved Yaakov and his children and his brothers, and they multiplied whatever, and they got wiped out in many ways in Egypt, right? But Egypt gets punished because you have to remember that Abraham asked Ma'eda, I want to know your character traits and all that. God says you should surely know your progeny is going to go into land not theirs, and they're going to be subjugated, and they're going to suffer. And the people who did it, I'm going to make them suffer, and I'm going to punish them. So this is prophecy. We understand it to be the Egyptians. Anyone could have done it, but it was the Egyptians. So what's the reality? The reality is, if it's a prophecy, they're just fulfilling the prophecy. Why should they get punished? Why do they deserve to be punished? And the answer is because they did it of their own free will. They're not programmed. They're totally not programmed. They did it because they believed it's the right thing to do. And they went beyond what God wanted them to do, so God severely punished them. So even if you want to say, well, maybe they did some good things and saved the Jewish people and whatever, they deserve to be wiped out. That's not enough. That's not enough to save them. Not at all. Because they went beyond what God wanted them to do. Therefore, God punished them severely. Someone asked, don't you think today's generation is probably a greater generation, considering the level of wickedness, distractions, and all that? Well, there is more Torah being learned in this generation since the Second Temple. That is definitely true. And not the level of learning. Certainly not the level of learning. I don't think there's anything to talk about, but keep in mind, every generation has its evil inclination. In the 1900s, what was the evil inclination? Communism, socialism, boons, right? Anything having nothing to do with Torah, taken away from Torah. You had in generations previously, you had the Greeks, worship of the body. You have distractions that way. You have distractions in every generation. So this generation, the cream puff generation, as I would call it. So we'll quote from the book of Psalms. Tell you what King David over here says. This is my own explanation, so you can take it for whatever it's worth. The Torah says, the King David says, the book of Psalms, chapter 34. Chapter 34, verse 13. I'm going to read a few verses here. Who is a man who desires life? Who loves days of seeing good? Verse 14, guard your tongue from evil, your lips from speaking deceit. Verse 15, turn away from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. Now, why do I quote this? Because this explains this generation. Again, this is my explanation. Right? Why do I say it's this generation? Take a look at Book of Psalms, chapter 34, verse 15. Turn away from evil and do good. Turn away from evil and do good. Now, Kaufman would say, in this generation, I can almost promise, not 100%, but I can almost promise, if people today would stay away from doing evil, they will have a portion in the world to come. Pretty bold statement to say. Meaning, if they stay away from evil, there's a very high percentage chance, and evil we'd have to define, whatever, but I would say you have a 90% chance or better of having a portion of the world to come. Now, what does the verse continue and say? the verse continues and says, do good. Right? That's what it says. It says, turn away from evil, turn from evil and do good. Right? Seek peace and pursue it. So turn away from evil. 90% of the people, if they do that, they'll have a portion of the world to come. Do good, Kaufman's language, that's a bonus. That's extra. You're going to say, come on. Right? How can you say that? Because that's his generation. You think people want to give charity? You think people want to help others in general? It's a generation. I'm not saying it's so radically different than previous generations, but we're living in a generation it's all about me. Right? Even though the Mishnah says in Sanhedrin, Bishvili nivra olam, for me the world's created, each person's their own world. But today people don't talk to each other, they talk at each other. And doing good, okay, you'll have people that may do good things, maybe they feel morally, they should help Granny cross the street, maybe give a little bit of charity, maybe help someone do whatever, could be. The vast majority of people only think about one thing, and that's themselves. And pretty much their stomach. That's what they think about. That's what they're thinking about. Whatever their desires are. They're thinking about other people in general? No. They're not thinking about other people. But you're going to say, doesn't that mean the world will eat itself up? Sure, that's what you see. That's exactly what you see. And if you didn't have police around, forget about defunding the police. We're not going to go there. But if you didn't have the police around, imagine what the world would be like. And even with the police around, look what's going on. It's chaos. It's chaos in general. So if a person to stay on the straight and narrow path, not so easy. You're going to say, come on, the vast majority of people are not in jail. Maybe. Right? These are the only people that get caught. The person has better education, socioeconomic situation's different. Okay, maybe we'll say it's a little bit different. Right? But there are people who do things, they cheat on their taxes, they do other things. I have a whole laundry list of things I could say what people do. That's bad. That's evil. That would label themselves as evil. I don't care what they know, what they don't know. And there are plenty of non-Jews don't know diddly what they're supposed to do in the world. And these things are universal, and the punishment is going to be 10 times worse. Right? It's only going to be 10 times worse. So there's no free lunch over here. But to actually do good, you'll say there are some people who have it in their heart to do good. Why? Because they do. Why? They'll give a rhyme or reason. They'll say it's the right thing to do. But why is it the right thing to do? Some people will say killing people through euthanasia is the right thing to do. They're dying anyway. They're suffering. Put them out of my misery. Oh, but we hold that's murder. Cheating on your taxes. Oh, that's not a problem. Uncle Sam's taking 35%. I'm not giving him 35%. Give him 20%, not 35%. So I hide money. Right? Or I'll declare what I wanted to clear. Right? Let's say someone's got an all-cash business. What does an all-cash business mean? It means they declare whatever they want. That's what it means. That means they can defraud the government easily. They can say, yeah, I'm making $50,000, $60,000 a year. And really, they're making $150,000, $200,000. Right? But they're not living an extravagant lifestyle, but they have this, they have that, maybe another house in someone else's name. So they pull all kinds of shtick. Right? That's lying. Right? That's the verse. You're not allowed to lie. You're not allowed that. Well, that's really stealing. Here, you're stealing over here. So there are people who think that, oh, I'm good. And I'm really good compared, what are you comparing yourself to? So you're going to say, well, I don't steal, and I don't do this, and I don't do that. So I'm good. Yeah, but in God's eyes, let's analyze according to what God says. Right? Are people going to pass the test? No, not even close. But people say all kinds of things. So the reality is we don't care what people say. We care what the Torah says. We have to understand what the Torah says. That's what we have to do. You're right. I would agree. It's not easy. It's not easy. And we're living in a generation. You're right. There are distractions. There's wickedness. There's violence. So to stay on a high level spiritually, when we're surrounded by garbage, is hard. That's why I say if you stay away from evil, you got a 90% chance or better of having a portion of the world to come. We're living in a world of distraction, and we're going to get upstairs after 120 years. We could use that as an excuse. We could tell God, you know what, I did this, you know what, I just couldn't help myself. I just couldn't help myself. I got distracted. God said, well, what do you think put the distractions in? And imagine if you would have gone and listened to what Kaufman said. I would have listened to what I myself say. I always tell my wife, I listen to myself, I look different. I'd be different. Gotta inspire myself also. But at the same time, staying away from evil is 95% of the game. And not getting distracted. But you're gonna say, but it's hard. It's all surrounding you. There's violence, there's immorality, it's everything in our face. It's in our face, you're right. Not saying not. So who says I have to give in to this? Who says I have to be, like the 300 million people are going to be watching this game today? Or probably less, because it's probably not going to be such a good game. No key players or marquee players or whatever, like I mentioned last night. But even so, you're going to have 250, 300 million people watching this game. And everyone watching the commercials, right? $1 million for half a minute. That's the pulse of where things are happening. I used to say that if you want to know the pulse of America, walk into Home Depot, walk into Walmart, hear what people are talking about, right? And you'd probably be pretty depressed when you hear, what's on people's minds and what people think, in general. That's the reality. I mean, I'm not living in Victorian England. We know what's going on over here. This is the major sporting event of the year. That a lot of people's days, their day today revolves around that. They're going to invite people over. They're going to go to someone's house. They're going to have a whole meal. They're this, they're that. The game's good. It's not. Doesn't matter. That's 300 million people or more. That's insane. It's insane. I'm not saying I wasn't part of that culture. But that's absolute insanity. So if you say, listen, I'm not into sports, doesn't affect me, fine, but other things do. That's only one aspect. There are many, many other aspects. Many aspects. So we could use that as an excuse. And we can say, God, come on. You made it way too distracting. You know what God could answer? If I was playing God, I would say, so basically you never really learned in your life. What do you mean? I spent years learning. I can say I didn't learn. Because if you would have seen how sweet the Torah is, why in the world we get distracted on about a football game, about a movie, about something else? Because it's in my face, you're going to say. I'm doing what everyone else does. But God says if you're really attached to Torah, you're not doing things by rote, which is akin to spiritual death, which we're going to get to. We'll see if we get there, right? It's akin to spiritual death. That means that we never really learned Torah. We never really enjoyed Torah. How do I know? Because that should be the most important thing. Oh, but I got to chill. I can't do this 24/7. It's hard on the mind. We're not here that long. Why does a person need to be distracted? This generation is distracted by a screen. That's what we're distracted by. We're not distracted by a book. We're not distracted by, good geschmack, Torah thoughts, and understanding. We're not distracted about that. We're distracted. Oh, there's a war in Libya. Oh, there's a war, this going on, that going on. Totally distracted in a split second. Oh, did you hear what happened? Blah, blah. Now, if it doesn't affect you, what do you care? Doesn't affect you. If it's something you have to guard yourself against, other things, maybe. But who says I have to waste so much time thinking about these things? You're going to say, what can I do? It's all around me. So you got to put it out of your mind. Victor Miller, blessed memory, once said, it's unbelievable. He said, people have a fancy room, fancy bookcase, chandeliers, sofas, beautiful thing. There's only one problem in this room. They stick a cesspool right in the middle. A cesspool, 50 inches, 60 inches, 30 inches. Boggles the mind. You're going to say, what? I can't relax. I can't chill. You have to know how. But the more you give in to distraction, the evil inclination will kill you. Don't like these things aren't fun. You're just sitting there chilling, watching something, being entertained. No one says it's not fun, depending on what it is. Right? But Torah is the ultimate. It's the only thing that matters. There's nothing else that really matters. This is the most important thing. Okay, you're right. Got to put food on the table. If a person's married, you got to take time with your family. Different things. You're right. You have to know how to balance. But there's nothing more important than what Torah is and the values. And all these things are giving bad values. So why are 300 million people watching this stupid thing and watching all kinds of other things, and they're distracted because they don't have any Torah in their lives? And they don't care. This is what they want to do. They want to waste their lives. Let them waste their lives. I have to be caught up in it. Other Jews have to be caught up in it. It's because they never tasted the sweetness of what Torah is. Because if a person really tasted it, it's all consuming. I want more. The soul is unsatiable. The soul always wants more. But if you feed it with garbage, what is the soul going to take? More garbage. That's what it's going to do. It's going to take more garbage and more garbage. And the soul, if the soul is unsatiable, you're going to need a lot of garbage to satiate it. That's what you're going to need. So that's where the distraction goes. That's what happens. And it's very hard to fight against that. Imagine a person that's been this way for 20 years, 30 years. How do you give it up cold turkey? It's like cigarettes. Nicotine is addictive. I get it. A little different issue. Right? But you don't give it up cold turkey unless you absolutely have to. And it's very hard. Then these other things that are addictive, whatever it is, whether it's internet addiction, movies, sports, you fill in the blank, whatever it is. And now you want to fight against it, but it's part of your psyche now. And it's all around you. So you got to live like in a cave. Your house has to be like a cave. Like a friend of mine once said, if there's a war, I'll find out about it. I was also kind of a news junkie also. You might miss something every 30 seconds. You give us 10 minutes, we'll give you the world. But the same news. Oh, really? He died? I didn't think he would die. I just heard he died, 10 minutes ago. I didn't think he'd jump again. Crazy thing. Where are our minds? Where are our thoughts? Our thoughts have to be at all times as much as possible in spirituality. If not, it's on other things that take us away. That's the bottom line. I don't care about anything else. That's the bottom line. And anything that's going to take a person away from Torah, even if it's permitted. For Jews and non-Jews, is watching football a problem? For non-Jews, not a problem. For Jews, for guys, maybe it's going to be a problem because they're wasting time when they could have learned Torah. So if there's not a problem of immorality or anything else, that's probably the only thing that's forbidden. That's why it's forbidden. But the question is, am I better off because of it? Did it make me a better person? No, but it was enjoyable. No, the last 30 seconds, you don't understand. The league changed hands 3 times. Unbelievable action. It's a game. People getting paid an exorbitant amount of money to play the game. I get it. Right? Makes perfect sense. There's only one problem. It goes against everything that the Torah set up for. Because it's a distraction. Right? So the question is, you're right. There's violence. There's distractions. Torah learning is not on the same level. But so I should give up? Should I throw in the towel? I don't think I should throw in the towel. It'd be very easy to throw in the towel. Very, very easy. Right? Very, very easy. But in the end, I had a discussion with someone last week. Right? In the end, at the end, it all doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Your team wins, they don't win. It's irrelevant. What does that have to do with Torah? It has nothing to do with Torah. People follow it, they like it. Again, I'll put myself in the category. The same way. Probably even worse in different ways. But if Torah is the most important thing, these things are irrelevant. Now, is it better watching that than other things? Yeah, probably. A person may have to be weaned off it, just like, it might have to be weaned off other things. But it doesn't benefit a person. What's the benefit then? It makes them closer to God. You're going to say, I can't believe I saw this person do this. Now forget it. God split the sea. Anything better than that? Thunder, lightning, Har Sinai, Mount Sinai gave the Torah to Jewish people, deep insights, all kinds of things. You want to tell me kicking a soccer ball or throwing a football or a basketball is more interesting? That means there's something wrong with us, which there is. There is. You don't put these two on the same level at all. Now, again, this might sound like fanaticism 101, 101A. It's like, why can't you just cut me some slack? Why can't I just enjoy it? Because that's not what God wants. That's not what he wants. He don't want you wasting time with this stuff. That's not what he wants. He wants you to draw close to him. That's what he wants. And anything that takes away from it is going to take you 5 steps backwards. Now think about the time a person watches take 5 steps backwards. By the end of the day, you've taken, let's say, 100, 150, 200, 300 steps backwards. Backwards. Even with the Torah you learned. That means I have to take, let's say, 200 steps forward to get to 0. Imagine where you are at the end of the week, at the end of the day, at the end of the month. You're going to say, so I should give up. I'm not saying to give up. I'm saying it's just like a bad boxer. You get knocked down, you pick yourself up. You have to focus. You have to know how to think. The Torah wants you to think a certain way. The Torah is not interested in what any of these people do in sports. Do I care what they say? Do I care when it comes to politics, what any of these people say? 0. Do I care what they say about Judaism? Come on. Or anything. I'm not going to care what they say. Most of them don't have a real education anyway. Most of them. I'm going to take anything they say seriously? No. They're athletes. They're actors. Actresses. Unless, you stick your foot in your mouth like Whoopi Goldberg did, okay, it's a different issue. Then you got to sort of take a stand because she said something idiotic. Totally idiotic. She's already spoken about. So fine, certain things may have to be answered. These other things, I don't care. I don't care how they shoot a ball. I don't care how they shoot a puck. No, it's irrelevant. Totally irrelevant to my life. Torah is the only thing that's relevant. It's the only thing. The only thing. Nothing else matters. What I'm learning matters. What I don't understand, I have to get an answer. That matters. That's what matters. Give an example. The great rabbi that said, I have the following question he gave to his students. Anyone who can answer the question will be able to marry my daughter. So they came up with this answer, that answer, the other answer. Nobody got the right answer. Nobody got the right answer. So at the end, a student comes up and he says, I know I didn't have the right answer. I know I don't have the merit, to marry the Rav's daughter. He says, but I want to know what the answer is. So the Rav said, you're going to be the one. You're going to be the one to marry my daughter. Everyone else gave up. They all gave up. They didn't have the right answer. Tried this, tried that, tried the other thing. But you're the one who wanted the answer. You were Mavaki Shemesh. You wanted truth. You desired truth. It's because you didn't know the answer wasn't enough. You wanted to go further. Right? You're going to say, come on. Are we really holding there in this cream puff generation? And it doesn't matter. God wants us to go further. He doesn't want us to be distracted. There are a lot of distractions in the world. You're right. A lot of good ones. A lot of fun ones. Plenty of them that are forbidden. Right? The best distraction in the world is what is Torah. Be distracted by a good question. What's the answer? Did they really marry? They didn't really. You got to think. Right? Makes us think. Makes us more tired. But we're using our brains. We're not vegetating. Right? So, the end of the day, God's going to bring this awareness at the end of days. The whole world's going to recognize he's in charge. Everyone's going to recognize it. The only question is, who's going to survive? Who's going to be around to survive? That's going to be the question. And according to my estimation, not going to be too many people around. Seems like a remnant of the Jewish people will survive. Had this conversation with someone Friday night. Not going to save everybody. I don't believe everyone's going to repent. right? Just like came out of Egypt 20%, maybe you have 20% of the Jewish people intact by the end. In any of the righteous of the nations who survive, right? But the vast majority, gonzo. Right? Whatever happens, they're going to get wiped out. Right? Most of the world's going to get wiped out. The students of the Vilna Gaon said in his name, more than 250 years ago, they said that in the name of the Vilna Gaon, of Elijah Vilna, if there's going to be a war of Gog and Magog, there's a whole question if there will be or not. Doesn't matter at the moment. But the Vilna Gaon said if there's going to be a war, it's going to take 12 minutes. So he's talking nuclear. Right? There was no nuclear bombs 250 years ago. No missiles. Now that could very well happen. How it's going to manifest itself, we don't know. But I would say if a person is staying away from evil and trying the best they can, they'll survive. They'll be able to survive. God's like, you weren't perfect, you're out. Why would that be fair? You kept shop, you kept kosher, you worked hard on yourselves. You might have failed, but there's other people who could care less. For sure, they're going to be wiped out. That there's nothing to talk about. Friends, family, God forbid. But that could very well happen. But God's going to wipe us out because we made certain mistakes. You're going to say, but you were close to the king, you get burned. Yeah, you could get burned. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to lose your portion of the world to come. Are there any questions here? Are we the lowest world? Yeah. There are, 10 spiritual worlds, right? This is the lowest world. This is definitely the lowest world. So, spiritual world, whatever, the whole different thing. Different levels, different things. But at the same time, we have to be put in this world in order to work, the Ramchal says. That's what we're here for. We're here to toil. You have to get to a certain minimal level in this world in order to have a portion of the world to come. Whatever that minimal level is. But you have to be put here. You have to be in this world. Right? You're not going to get a free pass without being in this world. You have to be in this world. And and even if we're reincarnated souls, our soul's been here. So it's not like it's never been here before. And whoever we are, whoever our soul is, that means we're in this world. At some point, before, after, whatever it is. So there's a minimal level, the Ramchal says, right? That the Ramchal says you have to reach a minimal level in order to have a portion of the world to come, whatever that minimal level is. And if we don't know, we can't rest on our laurels. We have to keep, we have to keep trucking. That's what we have to do. We just have to keep going no matter what is thrown our way, no matter what. It's a hard thing. All right, it's a hard thing, right? So someone here points out that person fell in love with a non-Jew, etc., broke it off because you're not allowed, right? Certainly not, Jews not allowed to marry a non-Jew, right? That non-Jew never got married, you need to make atonement. Why? Jews not allowed to marry a non-Jew, right? If you misled him, maybe it's one thing, right? That could be something else. If a person was misled, maybe that's another issue. But if it was done on the up and up, meaning it was really forbidden, and it just went too far, so to speak, do you need atonement for that? I don't know. I don't necessarily know. I don't necessarily know if you need atonement. Everyone's got free choice. A person might say, well, he had a broken heart. Totally had a broken heart. So he never got over it. Okay. Does that mean you're liable? Does that mean you're liable and you need, atonement? The person here says you misled them. So you probably should apologize. repent on Yom Kippur, apologize to the person, and say, listen, I never meant it to be that way, or whatever. And yeah, you should get atonement that way. Right? Yeah, if you misled the person, so yeah, you should try and gain atonement. You should try and apologize for what you did. It does remind me of a story. I'm just trying to think of the story now. Yeah, there are stories. Let's say when a person goes out with another person, and in the Jewish way of dating. So, let's say one side rejects the other, or let's say they got engaged, even better. Person gets engaged, and then shortly before the wedding, they break it off. Now, if that person who broke it off, for whatever reason, if they don't ask atonement from that person, and it's been shown over and over again that people who have done such a thing never get married. They won't get married. Sort of like a, what's the word? It's measure for measure, right? In other words, you jilted someone in that sense, and now, it doesn't matter why necessarily, but they feel the pain of what you've done. So now there are people that either measure for measure don't get married, or if they do get married, they have trouble having children. They could have trouble having children. And there have been many stories where the person apologized, the person that, either they jilted or whatever the case was, and that squared it. Then they either got married, had children, whatever the case is. Well, that's, measure for measure. So, something like that, anybody non-Jew, yeah, probably ask for forgiveness. And see if they'll, if it's something where they were misled, or something like that, or maybe, if a person thought not necessarily it was forbidden, but I don't know, they made leniencies for themselves, or who knows what, then they became much stronger. And they said, no, I can't do this or whatever. And is that necessarily misleading them? Yeah, I guess to be safe could be, a person try and gain atonement for that. Someone asks, is the lowest world, or we have to work our way up? Spiritual world's a whole different discussion, which I'm not going to get into. It's a whole different discussion. What the spiritual worlds are, how they work. How can we try and reach certain things in different spiritual worlds, right? That's not a topic, for now or any other time. Not something that I'm going to discuss. But, just know that, yeah, there are, much higher levels to reach in this world, even according to other spiritual worlds also. Right? We'll just sort of leave it at that. Yeah, let me see. Any other comments? Yeah, it's funny. Someone was telling me last week about, they're more depressed because what do they root for? I mean, I'm not a big football or soccer fan, right? Or never have been really. But the big Manchester United fans, and like they're not doing so well. Oh, I can't believe this, that. I guess it's exciting as that, but in the bigger scheme of things doesn't mean a whole lot. And I would say it's not something easy, not something easy to give up. Listen, if your team's never that good, that's one thing. If your team is like very successful and successful many years, in a row and this and that, okay, you get spoiled, but also you get into things and whatever. One other thing, there's a much longer thing here. Yeah, we mentioned before. We mentioned before that according to Rav Eli Lopian, blessed memory, he says that the way God runs the world, how he looks at truth and what people do and all that, right? He sees it from many different levels, many, many different levels. So it's interesting that even if a person may be liable for things they do wrong, nonetheless, people around them may be spared. 100% they may be spared because they don't deserve to be punished. Only the person himself or herself deserves to be punished. But you're going to say, come on, what about, young mothers who die with, let's say they have 5 or 6 kids and the youngest one is 2 or something like that. And a young mother dies. Or father at the age of 35, 40 has a stroke, cancer, whatever, and dies, leaves everyone else behind. And they struggle, all these different things. So you're going to say, well, didn't these people or her? Of course. So why did God let it happen that way? And what's the answer? We don't know. There are other things going on. For whatever reason, God took them and made these people go through what they're going through. Right? But, we don't know. We don't know what's going on. But he's telling you good advice. And the good advice is that if I work with others and I help others, even if a person does terrible things where they're liable for the death penalty, then at the end of the day, you may be spared. And you can be spared many years. Many years. Because it's a way of divine protection. Why do I say divine protection? Because when a person helps out the community and he's working with others and they need him, God's going to keep him around. Now, see, we wouldn't do that. Humans don't have that kind of mentality. We would say, you did this, knock him out. Oh, what about his family? What about his friends? What about this one? Now, what do I care? What do I care if I was playing God? I would say, who did against the king? You went against the King of Kings. They get spared just because your family might be weepy, because they might need you, because they're going to suffer in other ways. That's not the way it works. All right? That's why I'm not God. Most people are not God because we'd be a lot more cruel here. Because, imagine, we'll make it really easy. Imagine someone very close to you did something, you needed their help, you were down, and they didn't come through. It would have been anyone else you didn't really expect anything from, no big deal. But this person you've been close for years and years, you counted on them, the chips were down, and they left you. They left you high and dry. They didn't help you. For whatever reason, they may be justified, may not be justified, doesn't matter. That relationship may never be the same, may never be able to be repaired. Very well cannot be repaired. So if we would understand to the extent of what we do against what God wants. I get this question a lot, it comes up a lot, right? And that is, being tossed around, I'm trying, I'm working hard, and this and that, but nothing's easy over here. Livelihood is hard, family is hard, this is hard, health is hard, everything combined. Okay. Right? No one's not going to deny it's hard. You're going to say, but, I'm going in the right path. I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm getting tossed around. What did we say before? You now have a higher awareness. So you have a higher awareness. It's a whole different way of meeting out things. Before, God could care less. You did this, you did that, did the other thing. Because the most important question you might have ever asked is, I put ketchup or mustard on a hot dog. God's going to say, I'm worried about this person. I'll give him that. I'll let him do what he wants. Won't be so hard for him. Fine, I'll wipe him out later. Not worried. Oh, but now you understand. You understand their higher obligations. Their greater obligations. I have things I need to do. I have to answer for. All these different things. It's a whole different world. Then we're living in a whole different world. And Kaufman's law would be, that's the world we want to live in. Even if I get tossed around, even if it's hard, because everything we do now has meaning. My thoughts have meaning. What I see has meaning, or what I shouldn't see, whatever. It makes us into who we are. We think differently. We act differently, hopefully. That mean we don't have lapses? No. That mean we're perfect? No. But at the same time, I have room to grow. There's a lot of room to grow. We're all a work in progress. That there's no question. But at the same time, what am I really living for? What am I living for? I'm living for Manchester United. I'm living for TB12. Now they're retired. What am I living for? That's just interesting. I don't live for that. Tell me all the people are going to watch the game tonight. You don't live for it. It's interesting. It's nice. I could stop at any time. No, I don't think you can. Because it's a good distraction. It's fun, social, other things. It's what it is. Some more. But that's really shit. Why don't I even waste my time thinking about these things? And politics and whatever. Why? Because it's interesting. That's what life's about. You got people on both sides. I'm not going to go into the vaxxers, the anti-vaxxers, back and forth, this, that. People get heated up. In issues that, okay, maybe some things people say is life and death. But if it's not life and death, what are you getting heated up about? Person's getting heated up about no, they forget. That's the only thing the Gemara says you're allowed to be afraid of, that I might forget Torah. How many people today who are going to listen to this, are they afraid they're going to forget their Torah? Are they worried about forgetting Torah? Are they reviewing the way they should? I mean, the list goes on. The Holy Bible says, in duties of the heart, we don't do a quarter of what we're supposed to do. That means we don't give up. That means we keep going and do whatever we can. Right? I'll give the following marshal. Someone asks, why can't you eat a kosher hot dog with ketchup and mustard? You can't. That wasn't the question. The question was, that's the only important thing they think about. Do I put ketchup or mustard? That doesn't mean they're not thinking. That was the point to that. But could a person put kosher ketchup and mustard on a hot dog? Yeah, not a problem. Definitely not a problem. So I was going to come up with this parable, right? I'm not to remember what the parable was, but a person has to realize after 120 years, we're going to have to answer. We are going to have to answer for what we've done, for what we thought. And knowing more means we're held more responsible. That's what it means. And everyone should be whistling Dixie and doing the moonwalk, however you do, either when you hear it now. Because when you hear it later, it's going to be more embarrassing. At least I know now. So now I have to prepare. Now I have to guard my thoughts, to guard my eyes. I have to be careful what I say. And the person's going to say, yeah, but I work in such a place. People have foul mouths. People speak Lashon Hara. Okay? Not saying it's right. So you can't be a part of it. Meaning, person says something, person curses. Either think in my mind, oh, what a terrible thing. I don't do that, and I'm not going to do that, and whatever. The person's always trying to think toward thoughts if possible. Not always possible. But we have to train our minds. We have to train ourselves in general. To want to go in the right path, to have that desire. Because it's very easy. Let's speak about this. I've already spoken about it more in detail, but the idea is we cannot do things robotically. That's akin to spiritual death. Sort of my Hasidic side here coming out. Got to sing a little more, dance a little more, be a little more excited for what we do, and go out and live it. You're going to say it's hard. Life is hard. Life 100% is hard. Definitely not easy by any stretch. think anyone's going to say it's easy. All the Torah and the mitzvahs doesn't make it easy, except how you view things. If I view things that God is, do what I need to do, and God's the one in charge. You got any complaints, you go straight to him. But that's the mantra. Over and over. God, you control the world. I am nothing. I do nothing. I don't do what I'm supposed to do. But you're the one in charge. You're the one, I might have been the one to put myself in this mess. Or you're the one who put me in this mess. You're the one who's going to take me out. You're the only one. And it's not based on me. But you know what God wants to see also? God wants to see self-sacrifice. He wants to see you're putting yourself on the line no matter what happens. And that can change worlds. No number of people, they showed absolute self-sacrifice, doors opened in many, many different ways. In no way they ever thought of. But what changed? Because they were stagnating. They were just sort of on autopilot in different things. And what did they do? They did something unbelievable. Unbelievable self-sacrifice, and God opened up the heavens. In many, many different ways. Seen this by a number of people. Because God wants something. Not going to give it to you on a platter. He wants to see the blood, sweat, and tears. That's what he wants to see. Even if you get tossed around. Even if it's hard. Even if we've had different things happen to us which are nasty. Even so, God said, okay, I let it happen. This is what you went through. Now what? Now what are you going to do? Very easy to hide up in a cave. Go underneath your beds. Right? No one can see you. Very easy to quit on life. Very, very easy. You know how I know that? Because life just beats you down. But the question is, how do I view it? How do I get out of it? Right? That's what I spoke about last night. How do you get out of that mentality? And it's all perspective. A lot of it's perspective. One thing I mentioned was, I had an art teacher tell me I never amount to anything in art. Can't you try harder, this, that? She tried to destroy me here. But thank God I didn't care about art that much. Wasn't interested in working that hard. Someone tells you you're not going to be anything, so why bother, right? But I was good at other things. Academically, sports, so okay. I'm not that good at art. My kids got that. It didn't come from me, right? Whatever. I gotta sit there and worry what someone like that says, or what anyone else says. They got, they gotta make fun. If I breathe on your burger, does it mean it's not kosher? No, it means it's got bad breath on it. Right? You gotta take someone like that seriously. I don't care if they're a sibling, a parent, whoever it is. And they're sitting there and make fun. So let them make fun, sticks and stones. Who cares? I gotta sit there and answer them. Why do I have to answer them? Because they're trampling on everything you believe in. You're right. You know what? They don't know anything. They absolutely know zero. And they deserve to be strung up in Sing Sing. They're nuts. I'm not going to take, someone with a 20 IQ. I'm not going to take them seriously. I'm not going to worry about it. We're going to say it's painful. What they said wasn't nice. You're right. You're right. So a person wants to answer them, whatever. They come up with a snappy answer like I did. Good. If not, it's just a waste of time. You're not going to change anything. Say, oh, you're so sensitive. Oh, this. Oh, forget it. People aren't worth the time. They're not worth the time. When someone asks, God allows us to live beyond 80, then we should be focusing on learning Hashem's wisdom, pass on to others. What do you mean by 80? Anything over 70. But my Rebbe even said, why did the Levium stop work at 50? They're not allowed to work in the temple after the age of 50. Why? Because you should already be thinking about the next world by that age. Forget about 70. Forget about 80. Even by 50. Right? When I met my Rebbe one of the first times, he's like, listen, I just want you to know I don't live in this world. I'm like, say what? What are you talking about? He goes, I'm already thinking about the next world. He's already in the mid-60s by then. I'm like, who thinks like that? Who talks like that? But that's the reality. The older you get, you realize you can't do the same things. Body can't do the same things. We get closer to the grave, right? That's what every birthday is. Get closer to the grave. That's what we should be focusing on. But you're right. I started thinking about it even earlier than that. And we're going to give over as much as we can to others. That's true. If we have the ability to do so, no question. We have to take stock of it ourselves. We have to, it's not just, hear the talk. It's about putting it into action. Putting it into action is a lot different. Knowing what to do, okay, that's already 90% of the game. Or 95% of the game. Putting it into action, it's a lot more difficult. Definitely a lot more difficult. Because the evil inclination never stops. Evil inclination never stops. Someone asks, am I allowed to forgive someone who did something to me that had punishment and towards death penalty? Ooh, good question. Does the Torah say for me to leave them alone, let God deal with it? I'll tell you the truth. If someone does something wrong and they come to you ask for forgiveness, even if it's something very hard to forgive, you should forgive them. You should try somehow to forgive them. I'm not going to say it's easy by any stretch, right? Even if they're liable for a death penalty. Right? It shouldn't matter. We should try and forgive them. God is going to take care of them. There's no question. Even if you forgive them, that doesn't mean they have free lunch over here. God's going to take care of them, right? Someone once came to me, and said, well, this has already been done. And, according to the Rambam, the quote of the Rambam here, that, if you don't accept someone's forgiveness, you're called cruel. I said, that's true. They said, well, don't you hold by what Maimonides says? I said, I do. It allows the repentance. So they said, well, why is this case different? So I had a very simple answer. My answer was because you're not admitting you did anything wrong. Now, if they would have admitted they'd done something wrong, now the onus is on me. And I wouldn't have been able to forgive them. But I wasn't put in that situation. Right? My answer back was, are you saying you did anything wrong? I want to hear the words, I apologize for what's been done and the hurt that's been done to you. Doesn't sound like you're apologizing. All I heard was, basically we quote Whoopi Goldberg again, suck it up. It's been done. And if it's been done, deal with it. Now, does that sound to anybody like an apology? Doesn't sound like an apology. So I said, you're not apologizing. You're just telling me to deal with it. Right? And this is something egregious. I'm not going to say what it was. But, that's not an apology. If she would have come and apologized, that's a different issue. Then the onus is now on me if the apology was sincere. But if someone doesn't apologize, I don't have to forgive them. We should anyway. We say every night before we go to sleep, forgive anyone that did anything against us. So why do I have to forgive someone in general? Because we don't really mean it. So why do we say it? It's part of the Shema we say before we go to sleep. But do we really mean it? Good question. Right? So it's double-edged here. First thing is that even if they're liable for a death penalty, right? So could be they certainly have the status of someone who's evil. But even so, God will take care of them. You don't have to worry. God will take care of them. And if they would come to you for forgiveness, you should try and grant them forgiveness. If you can't, you can't. Right? But you are, if a person would be able to do so. And again, depending what it is, we're very petty, but it could be, even if it's something egregious, it's not so easy to accept someone's apology. And that's, and I think that's why God did not put me in that position. Right? Reason being that if I was in that position and this person came and said, listen, I feel really bad and all this thing happened, and over all this time, and and this and that, and maybe it wasn't the right thing, and maybe I was thinking about myself, and they could have drawn this whole thing out, and then the onus would have been on me. Now, I could say, now this is my own bias here, so take it for what it's worth, but I could say on myself, God's not going to put me in a situation like that. How do I know? Because God knows what's inside my heart, and He knows. He knows that's not something I could stand up to. It never happened. They didn't apologize. In their way, someone could spin it and say, well, wasn't it an apology according to them? Maybe. But it wasn't an apology, though. That could be my out and say, psychoanalyze myself and say, well, where there was an apology, I don't have to go down there. I don't have to worry about trying to jump through hoops to get to somewhere I'm not holding. Right? But this is something that's cannot be expected. Right? Maybe God can expect it. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe God can expect it. He didn't put me through that. Because deep down, He knows. I'd fail. 100% I would fail. And I can tell you, if the person came to me today, tomorrow, the next day, there's way too much anger. Way too much anger. If I understand why and all these things, make it very, very hard. Almost impossible. Almost impossible. And I think, if I were able to do that, just talking about myself, with a clear heart and a clear conscience, Mashiach would come. Guarantee you the Messiah would come. How do I know? Because this is something that's so extraordinary, that is so out there in general, that it's above nature. It's totally above nature. Right? That's why I won't be, I'll be able to accountable for a lot of other things. That won't be one of them. Now, could be. Maybe deep down, that's what they really meant. They just couldn't say it. And I should just take them at that, and that's their apology. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that because I want to get a way out. I'm not doing it because that's not what it sounds like. Right? I'm not picking at straws, but that's not an apology. Not an apology at all. Right? So, this person's not going to do this. And they don't have remorse. And they don't have regret. They did what they did. They did what they did. So be it. So deep down, I should really understand, this person was a stick, all this, right? I should. And it was to my benefit because other things happened, blah, blah, blah. Okay? I can understand it up here. Put it in my heart, it's a whole different thing. A much, much harder thing. So I'm banking on the fact that, that's a test. Not going to win. Not going to pass. Not even close. Could happen today, tomorrow, the next day. Could be on the person's deathbed. I won't go that far, but on their deathbed, I could say, I should forgive you. Really? You can say, but that's cruel. If the pain doesn't go away, you don't deal with it. And it's hard, you're right. You're right. Even with understanding everything Jewish philosophy, guess what? I got clocked upside the head. No apology, no empathy, no nothing. I should, someone's going to come and really seriously apologize. Now, that brings in the Rambam. And the Rambam says they come for forgiveness. You don't accept them, you're considered cruel. They come a second time, same thing. Third time, the onus is on you. You get the sin. Well, thank God, I don't have to deal with that because that's not going to happen. Right? But deep down, shouldn't there be forgiveness there? Probably. But, even with understanding everything else, it's hard. Right? We're human. And if someone's done something egregious, you're not so forgiving. But if they come and say, listen, look what I did, and I didn't really mean it, and it was this, and it was that, and, you can really hear it in their voice, then a person should probably give in. But you have to give it with a full heart. With a full heart. If you don't give it with a full heart, that's not forgiveness. Right? But without going into all that, if a person can't give full forgiveness, then you have to tell them, I can only forgive you up to a point. I can't give you full forgiveness. The onus is then going to be on you. So you're going to say, wouldn't it be better just to, get over it, etc., and wipe the slate clean? Imagine what that can do in heaven. Imagine. I'm telling you, my own situation could bring the Messiah tomorrow, what the situation is. There's no exaggeration. It's a pretty horrific thing, without going into detail. Not something I can do. It's just, we're human. I don't have to have my throat slit 150 times and say, 100%. I know you're angry. I know you got things against me. Okay, you keep doing it over and over and over again. And it's a little bit hard to take. But I'm saying that, in heaven, if you overlook what someone else did to you, God's going to overlook all the terrible things you did to him. Isn't that enough? It should be. But I'm not even saying we're petty, we're hurt, we're angry. I'm not saying I want this person to be punished, and dealt with. Someone else, okay, the person's getting whatever they're going to get upstairs. God's going to take care of them, and I have no doubt. But it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing. Someone say, how could God expect that? Depends where a person's holding. You think a person's in this world, when it comes to fixing up bad character traits, whatever we're doing here, you think it's going to be so easy to fix up? If it would be, we'd be dead already. It'd be so easy. So how do we know we have to fix up what we're doing here? So most likely, again, I'm not going to say it is, but it could be that, if a person was asked to do something, they'd rather slit their wrists with glass and their eyeballs with glass before they'll do it. And God was like, that's what you have to fix. That's what you're in the world to fix. You're going to say, come on, it's not fair. But God's not going to make it easy. It's not something that's supposed to be easy. Right? It's probably the hardest thing we'd ever have to do in our lives, bar none. Maybe it's being thankful for someone doing a favor for us. And we'd rather, never do that. Never be subservient to someone else or whatever. But, it could be any number of things. But it's not going to be something easy. Now, someone explained to me this many years ago. That could be the case. Right? What are we here for? What are we here to fix up? Could be something that's so impossible to do that you'd rather do anything else than do it. That's probably what you're here for. Is that a guarantee? No, I'm not saying it's a guarantee. I'm just saying it was one way it was explained to me. But it makes sense. Why does it make sense? Because if it'd be so easy, then we'd be dead already. We would have done it. Can't be something so easy. Does it have to be so impossible? I don't know. Maybe somewhere in between. Maybe something's like really, really hard. Doesn't necessarily have to be impossible, but someone told me, a few months ago, wow. So I'm really jealous of the portion of the world to come you're gonna have. You've just suffered so much. Okay. Yeah, I'm not saying other people haven't. Certainly not. Gone through my share. I don't think, no question about that. A lot of things haven't been easy. By any stretch. But at the end of the day, we spoke about Abraham. Abraham's against the world. I also fought against the world. It wasn't easy. Took my lumps, hardships, other things. But guess what? I'm still standing somehow. Miraculous, because it's the inner drive. It's the inner drive that makes us go, that makes us want to do the right thing, attach ourselves to God. That's what it is. Is it going to be easy? No. Is God going to put us in a situation we can't handle? No. We can handle it. We just don't think we can. Right? I'm saying in my own life, if I would have chosen this, forget it. I never would have chosen certain things. Not in a million years. Never. But you know what? It gives me the ability to speak about it, even though I'm not saying what it was, right? Speak in generalities because I went through it. Right? Part of that test is over. Right? Part of it was over. But I'm just going to say for 17 years, it was in my face on a weekly basis. 17 years. People talked outside, both sides of their mouth and different things. There's no empathy. There's it. It's good therapy for me getting this out. Right? So based on that, I didn't waver. I didn't flinch. I did what I had to do. It wasn't easy by any stretch. Not at all. And everyone said, well, would you have signed up for this? No. Would have signed up for it. I wanted it easier in a lot of different ways. I had to go through all this for what? I don't know. Find out what my soul had to go through. But the reality is, we're not put in a situation we can't handle it. We may think we can't. But see, how am I alive today, kicking and speaking about it in such strong terms? Because I had good people behind me. I listened usually to what they said. But I've gone through a tremendous amount of Jewish philosophy, kept my head on straight. And now, certain things people are going to say, and I mentioned last night in Perikei Avos, not going to flinch me at all. Not going to make me flinch. You know why it's not going to make me flinch? Because it's irrelevant. These people are insane. Right? That's it. There are things that we don't know why we have to go through this. And the reality is, it really doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, I'm able to give this over and I'm able to speak about it. And I'm able to give people strength about it because I myself went through it. Now, if I didn't go through it, I can empathize. I could give strength to people. It's not the same. Totally not the same. It's like bringing out a dormant character trait. So God says, how am I going to do this? Oh, Kaufman, this is going to be easy. I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. I'm going to be surrounded by all these different things. People saying this, saying that, whatever it is. And this is what's going to make him who he is. And if God would come to me and said, would you like that? No, not at all. Not interested. Not interested at all. But you see, some people go through things. They say, I'm not the same person. I'm glad I went through it. Now, I can say, I'm glad I went through it to a certain extent. Can't say 100%. Right? But yeah, it changed the way I think. Changed the way I look at the world. Changed the way I see things in many different ways. So it's a tremendous benefit. Right? So where there's darkness, there's light. It's not always dark. But you have to be able to see the light also. And sometimes it was pretty dark. Pretty dark. And it's so you say, how'd you get out of bed every day? I'm not going to say it's so easy. I'll tell you one thing. And I'll end with this. How did it happen? It happened because I just love to learn. And that was my city of refuge, going to learn in the morning. Whether I had more money, less money, that was my schedule. And some people said, we didn't see any difference. You just sat there, learned this, that, gave strength to others. Not an easy thing. Not going to say it's an easy thing by any stretch. But at the same time, makes us who we are. Definitely makes us who we are. I'm going to stop there. I do this every Sunday, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. You can send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN@gmail.com, whichever goods, beginning of the day, middle of the day, or end of the day.